Welcome, everyone, and welcome to the EVOLVE Voices podcast, a platform to hear about the fascinating stories behind the people that power global commerce. I am Mayssa Nasr, a marketing and growth consultant, and I am your MENA region host of EVOLVE Voices. Today, my guest is a true powerhouse in the world of private banking and wealth management, Marguerite Choueiry Bazerli, who's the executive director at GAR Capital, a wealth management firm based in Dubai. With over 25 years of experience across some of the most respected financial institutions, it brings a wealth of insight into how the world of high net worth investing has evolved and what it takes to manage wealth across markets, generations, and geographies. Today, she leads at the intersection of traditional banking and modern, flexible asset management, offering access not just to public markets, but also private equity, real estate, and venture capital. So, Margaret, welcome to the Evolve Voices podcast, and thank you for accepting my invitation today.
Thank you for this nice introduction. I'm just ready to start and to share with you my experience during the last decades.
Okay, amazing. So, Margaret, let's start from the beginning. So, I know that the journey started with a very personal inspiration, your father, right? So, how did growing up around financial markets actually shape your view of money and risk from a very early age?
Indeed, Maisa, it started very early. You know, my journey into wealth management started long before my professional career, really at home. My father was a banker, and
Yes.
growing up, I was constantly exposed to the language and rhythms of financial markets. It wasn't unusual for conversations at the dinner table to touch on interest rates, investment cycles, or even the psychology of market moves. My father once told me, never invest your money in stocks or risky assets for a short term profit, otherwise, you may lose it. At the time, you know, it sounded harsh.
Yes.
With time, I realized the wisdom in that lesson. It wasn't about fear, it was about respect for money, for risk, and for the emotional weight that financial decisions carry. That mindset shaped how I view wealth, not as something to gamble with, but as something to grow thoughtfully with discipline and care. It taught me that the role of a wealth manager, you know, isn't just to maximize return. It is mainly more to understand the unique story and risk tolerance behind every client. So from a very young age, I learned that money isn't just about numbers, it's about people.
Nice.
And that principle has been at the heart of my approach for the past 30 years, Naisa.
Wow, 30 years.
Yes, time flies. I think that perspective has served me well, and I'm looking forward to sharing more about how it's shaped the way I help others navigate their own financial journeys.
Incredible. Yes, actually, we'll dive into this. But first, I want to talk more about you and the master's degrees that you have pursued, because I know that you've pursued two master's degrees and you have many certifications too. So, this hunger, I mean, that you have, what drove it? What drove your hunger for this deep financial knowledge, apart from your father and for you growing up? But it's such a male dominated field, and I think it was not easy. Tell us more about this hunger that you have for financial knowledge.
Indeed, Maisa, you raised a very important point. For me, the pursuit of deep financial knowledge was never just about degrees or titles. It was about credibility, it was about confidence, and ultimately responsibility.
Yes.
Early in my career, especially as a woman in a field that historically been male dominated, I knew I had to be more than good. I had to be excellent.
Mhm.
I didn't want to just have a seat at the table. I wanted to bring value to it.
Okay.
That's what drove me to pursue two master's degree and earn multiple certifications. I wanted to understand the markets from every angle, you know, economics, asset management, behavioral finance, risk, regulation.
Mhm.
Each step deepened my understanding and expanded the toolkit I could offer my clients. But also, I did it for myself.
Mm.
Knowledge gave me the confidence to stand tall in boardrooms, to challenge assumptions and to speak with authority in rooms where women were often underrepresented.
Yeah.
Over time, it became about more than breaking barriers. It became about setting a standard and showing others that depth, preparation, and lifelong learning are powerful forms of leadership. And also in a world where financial landscape evolve constantly, I've always believed that staying ahead means staying curious. That same drive is what I try to pass on, whether I'm advising clients or mentoring young professionals. And here about mentoring young professionals, hopefully very soon, I'll be among a team contributing and giving back to the community in Lebanon, to the new generation in Lebanon. And sincerely, this is the ultimate joy anyone can go through, is when you give back to your community.
It's beautiful to share knowledge. Looking forward to know more about it when time comes then.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mayssa.
So, Margaret, tell me, I know that you've worked, in both the Lebanese and the Swiss private banking sectors. So, if we are to compare both environments, how do they compare? If you want to talk about the culture, the approach, the client expectations, are there similarities or they are really different?
In fact, I had the chance to work in both the Lebanese and Swiss private banking sectors. Both have given me a very rich and layered perspective on wealth management. Each environment has its own culture, rhythm, and approach to client relationships. Navigating both has been a defining part of my career because, Swiss private banking is deeply rooted in structure, discretion, and process. There's a strong emphasis on compliance, long-term strategy, and institutional trust. It's a system that values consistency, confidentiality, and precision, and clients often expect a very technical, data-driven approach that prioritizes risk control and wealth preservation. Now, the Lebanese, in Lebanon, the environment is more dynamic, personal, and in many ways relationship-driven.
Yes.
Clients often expect their private banker to be accessible, adaptable, and almost like a trusted family advisor.
Okay.
There's a strong emotional component. People want to feel seen, understood, reassured, especially given the region's economic volatility and what happened. What's fascinating is that while the expectations and cultural nuance differ between the Lebanese and the Swiss private banking, the core need is the same. You tell me.
Return on investment.
Mayssa, in fact, the core need of any business is trust.
Yes, it's true.
There's no magic formula. Whether I was sitting with a client in Geneva or in Beirut, the most important question I had to answer was, can I trust you with my future? And this is really a big responsibility. Being able to blend the Swiss discipline with the Lebanese warmth and intuition, just to answer your question, the Lebanese warmth and intuition has really shaped my holistic approach, structured when it needs to be, but always human at the core.
That's very nice. So just to understand more, so with the Lebanese people, you were getting more personal, right? Like a personal relationship, while within the Swiss, banking system, you cannot actually be because it's more controlled and framed.
Yeah, indeed. Both, one completes the other.
Okay.
And I had the chance to mix both cultures in order to share with the clients the fruit of this mixture.
Yes, nice. Okay. So then tell us, so after UBS acquired Credit Suisse, you made a very bold move toward external asset management. So what did you feel was missing in the traditional banking that JAR Capital today could offer your clients?
Yeah, the UBS Credit Suisse acquisition was a pivotal moment in the industry and for me personally. It raised a critical question. Is traditional banking model still the best way to serve clients in today's world? Because what I saw and felt was a growing disconnect large institutions by nature come with layers of bureaucracy, product pushes, please sell this product, don't sell the other. And sometimes a one size fits all mentality. And this doesn't work. While they offer scale and structure, they can lose the agility and independence that sophisticated clients increasingly demand. That's what drew me to external asset management and specifically to JAR Capital. It gave me the freedom to return to what wealth management should be about: tailor-made solutions, unbiased advice, and true alignment with the client interest. No pressure to promote in-house products, no diluted relationships, just pure independent advisory.
Okay.
Because, at JAR, I can craft strategies that are global in scope, but deeply personal in execution. And after decades in private banking, that shift felt not only liberating, it felt right. I wanted to be in an environment where the client truly comes first and where I have the tools and flexibility to honor that commitment every single day. And I'm really grateful and very happy in such a platform.
Private banking has evolved so much in recent years. So, for you, what are, if you have to think about the biggest shifts you're seeing in how, especially how net worth individuals manage their wealth?
And there is only one constant in life. It's
Change.
change. Absolutely, Mayssa. Private banking has undergone a real transformation in recent years, and high net worth individuals are thinking very differently about wealth than they did even a decade ago. It's not because of the age, it's because of the changes occurring with time. One of the biggest shifts I'm seeing is a move from wealth accumulation to wealth purpose,
Okay.
serving with purpose. And this is what, all of us are looking for today: serving with purpose. Clients today, especially the next generation, the new gen, aren't just asking, how do I grow my assets? They're asking, what do I want my wealth to do for me, to do for my family, for the world? That changes the conversation entirely. It's less about products and more about values, legacy, impact, and long-term vision. Now, there is also a clear demand for transparency. That's why the growing importance of compliance.
Yes.
Sophisticated clients are more informed than ever. They question fees, they want open architecture, they value conflict-free advice. That's why platforms like external asset management are gaining momentum nowadays.
Okay.
Also, not to forget, another major trend is the integration of lifestyle and wealth. The ultra high net worth individuals today don't see finance in isolation. They want access to global mobility planning, succession structures, philanthropy advisory, even health and education strategies, all under one cohesive wealth plan. So that's why the thematic funds, I have clients investing in education and digital education, digital health. I believe the trend is your friend. So we should always follow, the trend. In short, wealth management is becoming more holistic, more strategic, and more personal. And I believe the future belongs to advisors who are not just financial experts, but also trusted life partners.
I think that's a beautiful shift, actually. It's a positive shift to think, about a holistic approach. Margaret, so you were talking about crafting strategies at JAR. So I'm curious to know, how do you actually tailor these investment strategies between public markets from one side and the private opportunities from the other side, like, venture capitals, real estate, private equity?
Very nice question. That's really a great question, Namsa. Thank you for allowing me to share this, this important point, because it is one that really gets to the heart of modern wealth management. For me, the key is understanding that there's no one size fits all allocation. Every strategy has to reflect not just the client's financial goals, but also their liquidity needs, risk appetite, time horizon, and even also their emotional comfort with volatility. because this is very important. I cannot sell to a client a very volatile stock if for a client who is really highly averse to volatility. In parallel, the public markets like stocks, bonds, listed funds, they offer liquidity, they offer transparency, I do agree, and real-time access. They're essential for managing short to medium-term needs and ensuring flexibility, ensuring liquidity in the portfolio. But they also come with higher correlation and short-term noise. This short-term noise, volatility, a data. Let's say today the CPI has been published. The CPI in the US. So a lot of noise. So I use them strategically, often for core allocations and tactical positioning, because the short-term noise sometimes doesn't help. Most of the times, that doesn't help. However, private markets like venture capital, like private equity, private credit, and real estate, they are a different story. And the client today really needs to decorrelate from the financial markets, from this noise. The private markets, they require patience, but in return, they offer access to innovation, to long-term value creation, and often uncorrelated returns. These opportunities can be particularly powerful for clients with long time horizons and the capacity to weather illiquidity. Because, as I just mentioned, the added value of the financial markets, it's liquidity. You can sell the stock, the bond, whenever you want. It takes like T+1 or T+2 and you sell. However, the private markets, you can't exit it in 1 month. Sometimes it is 1 month, sometimes 3 months. Depends on the fund, depends on the private market assets. So the magic happens, in fact, in the mix. Always, I always use the mix of each thing, because nothing is perfect, but at the same time, in each thing you can pick what you want and use it in order to create a nice mix. I work closely with clients to strike that balance, ensuring we're building a robust core while selectively capturing alpha through private deals that align with their interests, whether it's technology, sustainability, or legacy real estate, let's say. Ultimately, my role is to curate a portfolio that reflects both their aspirations and their realities, to make sure they always understand why we're investing in each piece, and to share with them each and every single detail, because transparency is key.
Yes, yes.
So I hope I answered your question.
I'm curious to know actually. So you're saying it's a mix, right? So you need to have like a constant follow up and feedback with a client. How often do you talk with a client who invested, let's say, on a long term thing? Do you get in touch with them every month, every week, every day? How does it usually happen?
In fact, it is a really tailor-made approach.
Okay.
Each client has his own priorities, his own requests. Some
Okay.
clients, they tell me, Marguerite, please just do for me a monthly review or a monthly portfolio overview. Some others, they need a daily follow-up. When we decide to intervene in this process is when the instrument, because I can't, sometimes I need to update a client about a stock. Sometimes there are special events in the market where I can't stay passive towards it. I really need to call the client to update him if something happened about, a stock held in his portfolio, or a bond, or a specific issuer, or a specific data, economic data that may affect his portfolio or his positions. So it's really a mix of emotional intelligence and using what I've learned to give the client the best experience possible.
Okay. So today you currently, at Jar Capital. So what role do diversification from one side and geographic flexibility from the other side play in your current wealth management model?
Yeah, a nice question. Diversification and geographic flexibility are absolutely central to my wealth management philosophy at Jar Capital. That's why I'm there. In today's world, risk doesn't just come from market volatility. It comes from geopolitical shifts, from geopolitical tensions, the regulatory changes, currency movements, and even social transitions.
Yes.
It's not only about markets or capital markets and financial markets. And this is the issue today, because that's why sometimes we're unable to predict what may happen, because fundamentals and technicals, two schools, two tools that
Yeah.
we usually use to take the right decisions, they are big time affected by geopolitical tensions and factors. And when politics intervene, sometimes the economists can't do anything. So, as an economist, as a banker, in today's world, risk doesn't just come from this market volatility. Consequently, building truly resilient portfolios means looking beyond borders and beyond asset classes. Diversification today isn't just about spreading across equities and bonds. It's all about multi-asset, multi-currency, multi-region strategies that can withstand shocks in one area without compromising the whole. That might mean pairing, let's say, for example, US tech exposure with Asian infrastructure, balancing, let's say, debt market credit with emerging market private equity, trying to diversify geographically, not only through asset classes. This has been perfectly done by hedge fund managers, fund of hedge funds, private markets, private credits. And honestly, I can tell you, we're very strong in it. And lately, we signed with the best ones, with the best fund managers to offer to our clients the best diversification possible. Now, because this geographic flexibility is also key when serving internationally mobile clients, families with cross-border interests, whether they're thinking about real estate in Europe, business expansion in the Gulf, or education in the US. We design investment and structuring solutions that reflect their global lives. And this means to us, really, because we have the independence at Jar Capital and the agility to tap into global opportunities without being restricted by in-house products or regional mandates. We deal with big names, Blackstone, Goldman Sachs,
Yes.
really big names. That freedom is what allows us to stay both diversified and opportunistic. Two things I believe are essential in today's landscape, to be diversified and opportunistic.
Very interesting. So, Margaret, I wanna, go back to you. We talked very quickly at the beginning how this industry is mainly led by men. So, I want to dig deeper into the fact that you're a woman today in this industry. As a woman leading in finance, because you're a leader today in your field, what challenges did you face from the beginning and maybe up until today, breaking into and rising within this industry, and how, most importantly, did you overcome them?
Yeah, in fact, Mayssa, I'm usually someone who doesn't like to follow the trend outside the financial markets because I believe critical thinking is really important.
Yes.
So I really respect every human being in the globe. And I believe every human being in the globe needs to have equal chances to grow. Men are great, women are also great.
Yes.
And we complete each other's. What man has, woman doesn't have, and vice versa. And I believe back to the picking and having the mixture and being, let's say, the right person in the right place, the right human being in the right place is the most important thing, Mayssa. Now, breaking into finance as a woman and rising within it wasn't always easy. When I started out, I often found myself being the only woman in the room, especially in high-level meetings or decision-making roles. There were moments when I had to work really twice as hard to be taken seriously, to prove I belonged and to earn the same level of trust that some of my male counterparts or colleagues received automatically.
Crazy. Yeah.
One of the biggest challenges was not just external, it was internal. I had to overcome that quiet, persistent voice that asked, do I really belong here? And the way I did that was through preparation, consistency, and building undeniable competence. I made a decision early on that no one would outwork me. But I also learned that you don't have to become someone else to succeed. You don't have to toughen up or shed your empathy to lead in finance. I believe my ability to connect, to lead with intuition and integrity became my greatest asset. Today, if I can say, I lead, I lead with pride, not just in what I've achieved, but in what I represent. Because every time a woman sees someone who looks like her succeed in this space, it opens the door a little wider for the next one.
True.
So I believe leading by example is the best way to send messages to your children, to your family, to your community around you. I hope I did it.
So what advice would you actually give today to all these young women entering the finance world, the investment world, full of, let's face it, it's still the majority of men are working today in finance and investment. So what advice would you give them?
My advice to young women entering the finance and investment world today is simple but powerful.
Okay, I like it.
Is own your voice, do the work, and never underestimate your worth. If I can summarize them, 1, invest deeply in your knowledge. Technical skills will give you credibility and confidence, but also invest in the EQ, the emotional intelligence, because understanding people is just as important as understanding numbers in this field. If you're not a good listener, you don't put yourself in the client's shoes, you lose it. Even if you are the best trader, the best technician, and the best economist, you name it, you lose it. Second, don't wait for permission to lead. Speak up in meetings. Ask the tough questions. Take the seat at the table, even if you're the youngest or the only woman there. You don't have to be perfect to be powerful, You just need to speak. Third, find mentors, but also build your own network of peers. Support one another, share opportunities, because success is sweeter when it lifts others with it. And this leaves an impact. And, it's all about the impact we leave at the end. Finally, stay authentic. Be yourself. You don't have to fit a mold to succeed in finance. In fact, what makes you different is often your greatest strength. So please, for any woman, just be yourself. Focus on what God gave you to share with others.
These are great advices. Thank you for this. Margaret, you're also a mom. So you're a mom and you're an executive. How do you navigate the demands of both roles without compromising either? Because I know that it's not easy.
Indeed, I'm a proud mom, in fact, and I have a son and a daughter. They are in universities now, and balancing motherhood and an executive role is one of the most challenging and rewarding parts of my life. And I'll be honest, there's no magic formula. There are days when one pulls more than the other. And the key has been learning how to be fully present instead of chasing the illusion of perfect balance. Because when you are fully present at work, in your office, and when you are fully present at home, you did it.
Yes.
I can tell you, you did it. What has helped me is setting clear priorities, is building a strong support system for sure. And being intentional with my time, because time is really the first and the last raw material God gave us. Time is really very, very important. Investing your time in the best way at the right place, this is success.
True. And so, how do you inspire your own kids today? Especially if they ever want to follow in your footsteps, right, in finance. What are the inspirations you give them?
Yeah, I'll tell you. When I'm with my family, I try to give them my full attention. And when I'm with clients or in the boardroom, I bring the same level of focus and dedication. I've learned to integrate rather than compartmentalize. The compartment,
Yes.
integrate. Because both roles feed each other in unexpected ways. Being a mother has made me a more empathetic, resilient leader. It has taught me patience, perspective. It has taught me also, this emotional intelligence.
Yes.
You develop it incredibly as a mother, and how to judge complexity with grace. And being an executive has shown my children, especially my daughter, that women can lead.
Yes.
They can build and nurture at the same time. And I believe there's no growing economy without empowering women to participate in this growth.
I agree.
So mainly this is it, Mayssa.
So, if you look back today at your 30-year journey, if you have one lesson you wish you had learned earlier, what would this one lesson be?
A nice question. It has been a long journey. And if I need to reflect on this as a lesson, looking back on my journey, I wish I'd learned earlier that you don't have to do it all alone. Early in my career, I felt a constant need to prove myself, to carry everything on my shoulders, to never show weakness, to be endlessly self-reliant. But over time, I learned that strength also comes from vulnerability, from asking for help, and from building a circle of people you trust, like mentors, colleagues, friends, and family. Collaboration and support, community are not signs of weakness. They are accelerators of growth. And often it's in the conversations, the shared experiences, and the honest moments of doubt that we find the clarity and the courage to move forward. So if I could go back, I tell my younger self, you're not alone.
Okay.
Lean into the people who lift you, and don't be afraid to lift others too. Because this journey isn't just about how far you go, it's about how many people you bring with you.
Beautiful. Margaret, tell me, if you had to summarize your purpose today in only one sentence, what would that be?
In only one sentence, it is to use everything I've learned professionally and personally to empower others to build lasting wealth, lead with integrity, and believe in their own potential. I believe. Is it one sentence? Yes.
Yes. It is one sentence. Thank you, Margaret. I have one last question, actually, that I always like to end my podcast with. If you had one book to recommend,
Yeah.
which book would it be and why?
In fact, I like this question, and I always mention the same book. However, I've read, many.
Yes.
But The Magic of Thinking Big.
Okay.
It is a book, by, I believe, Schwartz.
Mm-hmm.
Forbes called it one of the greatest self-help books. It was the first book I picked from my dad's library. I was like 18 years old, and it taught me a lot. It taught me that thinking big, or the way you think, is the way you are. You think negatively, you are negative. You think positively, you are positive. And this really was behind each and every step I did in my personal life and my professional life, thanks to my dad.
Amazing. Thank you. Thanks, Margaret, a lot.
I thank you, Mayssa. Really very nice questions, very well prepared. Thank you for your time. Thank you for considering me in this interview, and for having me.
Thank you. Thank you, Margaret. It was a real pleasure.
My
And
pleasure.
for everyone who stayed with us up until the end, thank you for listening. And as usual, keep evolving.
Thank you.
Now make sure you subscribe to Evolve Voices, this leading and incredible project where our ambassadors are interviewing amazing professionals from all over the world so they can share their perspective and benefit you with their perspective, their knowledge, and you can understand what's happening in the different markets. Evolve Voices is a project part of the Evolve Commerce Club, the #1 and leading community where we connect international professionals in the world of commerce. We are now connecting professionals in more than 40 markets, and every week we invite an expert to share their perspective and their knowledge. So if you'd like to know more, you can always look at the comments. We have a link there so you can request your application and stay tuned for the next episode. Thanks for watching. All the best. Ciao.